How does one say happy 80th birthday to two people at the same time? And why should one? Why don't we make them separate? The two people are Federico Mayor Zaragoza, and the other person is Austin Repath. Two 80-year-old people that are in my life and have been in my life for most of my life in the last 15 to 20 years. Strangely enough, there's some synchronicities between these two human beings, both now 80. I always hung out with older guys. I never realized it until as I started to look around, and a lot of people are dying. A lot of people are dying. But this is not about dying. This is about living. And how exciting it is that Federico Mayor, when I first met him, 1993, I was in Montreal. I was at a conference, the preparatory conference for Vienna on human rights. And at that conference, I'll tell you a little bit of the story. I came to the event sort of magically, as life would have it, and as I'm in the hall and the presentations are all being made, and I asked if it was be permitted that I could express an opinion. And I was given permission to speak at this conference. It was the Human Rights Conference, and I had an observation to bring to it that I had made 12 years earlier at the Planetary Initiative for the World We Choose, which synchronistically enough is where I'm connected to Austin Repath, but I'll get to that later. So I'm at this conference in Montreal. I make a little presentation at the beginning. I'll spare you all the details, but this is about Federico Mayor. This was a conference that he was hosting. And I was at lunch with an amazing guy. His name is Walter Lichem. He was the ambassador to Canada from Austria. And as we're sitting having lunch, this fellow from the Philippines comes over to me and he says, "Mr. Gold, what happens with that kind of intervention that you made? Because it was very good and I want to support it." And I said, "I have no idea." And Walter Lichem said, "Go see that guy." And he pointed to Federico Mayor Zaragoza. So I did. And that was my first meeting with Zaragoza. I went to him and I asked him how we do the next steps, and he said, "Give me a little note and I'll see that it gets looked after." So I come back and I report to the table with Walter Lichem, and Walter says, "Nah, that's not going to do it. It was nice, but here's what you do." And he gave me instructions. I followed the instructions and I gave the little note to Federico Mayor Zaragoza the next day. The note was formulated as an intervention, and it was signed by 15 or 20 people representing hundreds of millions of people on planet Earth. That was my little note. And long story short, it ended up in the final presentations as a preamble. My intervention created more problems than one might shake a stick at, but the end result was, in international documents, the terminology rights and responsibilities are now attached. And that is a contribution to humanity by our friend Federico Mayor Zaragoza. Those two ideas are now attached in international documents. And I thank you, Federico Mayer, for accomplishing that task. My second meeting with Federico Mayer of Zaragoza happened some years later. I was on the 997th day of my 1,000-day voyage, which was going to culminate in Greenwich, England. I saw that there was a conference over in Spain nearby. I was in London. So I flew over to see this conference that had to do with human rights and relationships and stuff like that. I forget the name. And I see Federico was talking to everybody, and I expressed to him an idea of what my final presentation was going to be, the 1% solution. The notion of a global tithing and how to effect it without the permissions of governments or anybody. Anyways, at that meeting in Barcelona, I believe it was, Federico Mayer gave me his card. He reached over in the crowd of all the people around him and he said, "Here, contact me." And that was my second meeting with Federico Mayer. My third was more profound. I was invited to present my ideas at the Foundation for a Culture of Peace, the inaugural meeting in December 2000. I did so. And I was able to present in front of the world leaders my ideas about the 1% solution and the possibilities of how we might effect social change without needing the permissions of the broken governments or the broken nation states or the broken countries. We could all do it just with the right will, the will to do. So those have been my meetings with Federico Mayer, and over the years we have corresponded, and from that, and I understand that the meeting that this is being presented at, Boutros Boutros-Ghali is also in attendance, and Boutros promised me his institutional support, and I welcome him into my life, and I thank you, Boutros, for giving me the institutional support that I deserved. I would have preferred more, but I thank you for being there and doing what you do in the name of peace. And that brings me to, wow, how are they all connected with the last one, the story of the last one, and that's how I met Austin Repath. Austin had given me the story of the last one. I recall him handing it to me, somewhat the way Zaragoza handed me his business card. Austin handed me the rough tape of his story. I ended up producing the story, and it became, we sent it all around the world. Never made a dime with it, unfortunately, and Austin, you deserved better from me than what you got. That story, the last one, ought to have made money and generated and not just money, but your skill as a writer. And I know the two of you on your 80th birthday are getting ready for sainthood. We are all getting ready for sainthood. Sainthood is what we all aspire to. This is why we do what we do, because at some point in time after we go, our spirits will be acknowledged for having done something of value. And that's why we do what we do. We're all doing something of value. And as you're both still alive, I greet you and ask you in your next couple of years before you pass on, that you assist me further as we go along with the ISO 26000 standards. These standards bring forth all of the ideas all of us have been thinking about for years and years and years. The ISO 26000, which have been formulated as business standards in social responsibility, actually are much greater. They are international spiritual obligations that are defined by the 10 questions every person in an organization asks themselves on a daily basis. Does this idea, good, service, gestalt, does it serve my highest good? Because if it doesn't serve my highest good, and I mean yours, then what good is it? We shouldn't do it. Let's do stuff that serves our highest good. And then we go through a series of questions that brings in the mental and emotional and collaborative aspects of our consciousness and being. And the final question is, does it help serve the planet? These 10 questions, applied on a daily basis, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, considering economics, ethics, energy, and health, will resolve the dilemma of our planet today. And we are suggesting that these 10 questions be put into an application that is delivered over a BlackBerry process. So you can ask yourself the questions and answer the questions, and the information will be tabulated, and you will see very soon if you are behaving in a holistic manner, if you are serving your own highest good. So on our 80th birthday, I give you this gift of this information that you should share it far and wide. The ISO 26000 are not just guidance principles for corporate social responsibility. They are international spiritual obligations, and I ask you to consider that on my relations. And happy birthday.